come back from that short break. We were still navigating public procurement in light of the cases that have actually shaped, especially especially cases that involve colossal sums of money, and how they have shaped how government is handling public procurement. And in this case, I'll first throw the ball to government before we now eliminate the other arms of government and bring it home to who is responsible. We were discussing, and an observation was being made that you see most of these, especially big ticket procurements, you see a common thread of single sourcing, but also a firm hand and influence of the head of state in terms of having the final say, but also defining who should be the beneficiary of that procurement. And I think it's now, of course, questions have been raised that when do we draw a line between influence peddling in procurement processes, and we all know that influence peddling is a form of corruption, and well-intentioned or well-intended presidential directives. When Henry gets back online, I think he's about to get back online, I think we'll be able to further circumvent that question, because well, I can argue that probably the president is acting in the best interest, since you've delegated responsibility and power and authority to him. Is acting in the best interest of the people of Uganda. So when he directs that you should give Farm A this business, he has looked at that farm and realized that my actions here are in the best interest of the people of Uganda. But now, sometimes those directives towards certain farms, they tend to backfire when, especially the farms that the president is vouching for, don't miss the mark or don't fulfill certain minimum requirements that can satisfy us as citizens. And I think, Henry, now that Henry is back, let me quickly throw this question. Henry, when does one draw a line between influence peddling and procurement processes, which is a form of corruption, and the well-intended presidential directives?
Thank you very much, Felix. And of course, it's regrettable that internet did what it did, but here we are. Now, that's a very good question. At what time does one draw the line clearly between influence peddling, which is a form of corruption? If you read the literature on corruption, they have classified corruption in two different forms. One of them is influence peddling. When a head of a government institution intervenes in taking decisions on who should awarded which contract, that is illegal, is a breach, and it signifies a conflict of interest. It signifies that the one who is peddling interest has an ulterior motive. Now, the problem with the developing countries such as Uganda and many of our other colleagues in East Africa, who have always perennially been ranked among the most corrupt countries in the world, we have a problem, especially, number one, if we have a regime in place that has overstayed in power, the tendency is always that either the office of the president or state house would become a clearing house for deals. And of course, these deals are needed because that money is important in as far as sustaining and financing the stay in power is concerned. We have seen it in South Africa. You shall recall that at the time a vote of no confidence was cast in Jacob Zuma as president of the Republic of South Africa, office of the president had become a clearinghouse for deals. At the time Ndugu Mugabe was being thrown out, one of the accusations was that the office of the president had become a clearinghouse for deals. During the days of Kanu, the late Daniel Arap Moi was being accused of turning State House or the office of the president into a clearinghouse for deals. This is what we are seeing in Uganda. So when State House becomes a clearinghouse for deals, and by the way, there's something about State House. We have always said that the principle that was handed down to us by the colonial masters were that the man or woman that occupies the office of the president shall have two places of living. The first one, the place where he or she stays, which was given the name State House, and the place where they work from, which is the office of the president. All the work of the man or woman that occupies the office of the president has to be done in the office of the president. State House is where they go to rest and meet their own people, private people, and so on. In the case of Uganda, we are seeing increasingly that the budget allocation to State House is ×3 the budget of the office of the president. In other words, work that would have been done in the office of the president is being done in State House, which is a distortion of management of public affairs. Now, anybody can argue otherwise. This is my opinion. And this is opinion also informed by international best practice. So State House became a clearinghouse for deals, which is why you are going to see that the deals of Pinetti we are talking about, the State House has a hand, the president himself has written to the speaker and said this must be. So it's difficult now to draw the line, because whereas as a fountain of honor, as a person whom Ugandans have bestowed power and conferred their power to be governed, when they went to the ballots, the votes, the elections in 2021, of course, is supposed to be superintending over all the business of the country. But does that then give you license to peddle, influence? I mean, to interfere and descend into the arena to the extent that you are determining who gets what deal? I think that is wrong. The practice should have been that there should be institutions which are manned by technocrats that are grounded extensively on matters of the state and statecraft, that conduct due diligence. First of all, they develop the national development plans. Then they break them down to plans of ministries, departments, and agencies, and then to annual plans, which are funded by the annual budget. And they are the ones who identify which direction the country shall go. Your role as a president is to govern as the executive. It's like, as head of the home, you have bought meat home, but you also want to participate in taking the decisions in who gets what piece of meat. I think it has to be clear here that the head of state has overstepped the boundary. Yes, he has powers, and it's a contingent on him as head of state to make sure that the national resources are governed in the best possible way. Yes, it is true that we have thieves and looters among the technocracy, in which case you can give an excuse that, oh, I don't trust them, but that you are the one who is identifying the woman Pinetti and writing letters and putting your weight on the line for this woman. I think we are staring in the face of influence peddling, which is a form of corruption. I think these are actions we should study seriously. I think that the head of state and the advisors that he has should be able to look at this instead of the likes of the Attorney General, the Minister of Finance, and others defending this deal as if their life depends on it. I think it's important to tell the president the truth, that it is important sometimes to keep your in exercise of your mandate as head of state and fountain of honor. It's sometimes some things are better off being left at arm's length. So I want to conclude by saying that in this case, this deal has all the trappings of influence peddling, that is a form of corruption, and that the president should have done this a different way. And if the rest of the citizens and their representatives have raised a red flag, there is no justification for the president now to again go ahead and insist on defending the lady Pinetti, as if the resource says, as if the country Uganda belongs to Pinetti. The country Uganda belongs to Ugandans, not to an individual. The country Uganda does not belong to the president. There was Uganda before the current president. There shall be Uganda after the current president. Uganda stays, and therefore the interest of the people of Uganda should be reigning supreme. That is my opinion.
Okay. Okay. That you've had Henry share his opinion on that one, but again, the fact that the president, the office of the president, which is now more or less the state house, is taking over or is managing procurements, it raises a question in this case, in view of what's happening, is the entity, the authority, the public procurement and disposal of assets, the authority that is mandated under the PPDA Act of 2000, I think it's 2003, as an institution. Is it to manage all forms of procurement, including the ones that may provide room for single sourcing, under which these two are categorized, or under which these two were handled? Does that then mean, apart from the classified ones, does this then mean that, okay, where do we place PPDA?
The institution Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Assets Authority, which is established, which is a statutory institution established by Act of Parliament, with the responsibility of superintending over all forms of public procurement, does not seem to be, relevant in this particular aspect. And when you look at this critically, you get to see that PPDA is suffering from the same malaise that the other institutions are suffering from. And that malaise is the dysfunctionality that has been occasioned by the captivity of these institutions, the captivity that has been in place for the longest period now. PPDA doesn't even get to be mentioned anywhere. I don't know whether they signed off to this. The law says that in the case of single sourcing, of course, the head of state, his word can be law and can override these laws. But in a situation where you are constructing a facility for the country, where you are doing things for public interest, and you don't involve the public institutions, what message are you sending across? As the head of state, your responsibility is to ensure that you put in place a functional institutional mechanism, that institutions are working. But for us in Uganda today, what we are seeing is that we have individuals taking over, okay, from institutions. Individuals being stronger than institutions, institutions no longer working, institutions being dysfunctionalized, and all these are necessary concomitants of state capture. And therefore, I think if I was Parliament, I would be putting PPDA to task to explain what their role was, But I should also be putting the executive to task to explain why in all this dealing, they have sidelined the institution that is mandated by Act of Parliament to handle public procurements in the interest of Ugandans. Back to you, Felix.
Thank you so much, Henry. Sorry, I briefly went off. I think we have having a connection challenges, but I'm glad that you picked the question, even when I was a bit unclear. You were able to pick it up and run with it. But in view of the above, I would want to know, because until yesterday, it's very clear that public opinion, also as expressed through the MPs that are handling the probe into this matter, you realize that almost everybody is agreeing on one thing, that these are deals gone wrong. But you have the Attorney General, you have the Minister of Finance, especially those two, defending these two deals like their lives depend on these deals. They are defending these two deals in a manner that you question where they get all this gusto, this passion, this commitment to go against the majority. So it's more of the minority versus the majority. And is there something they are seeing we can't see, the rest of us can't see, the majority of us can't see? Henry?
You see, that is the question that many Ugandans are asking themselves. Why is the Attorney General, why is the Minister of Finance and others defending this deal as if their lives depend on it? What is it that they see that we do not see? The challenge we are having as Uganda is that our institutions are devoid of people, men and women, strong enough to say no to wrong practices, strong enough to say this is wrong, this is right, strong enough to say this is unacceptable behavior. So what we have now are people who have decided to appease the appointing authority, because there is no way the technocracy would absolve itself of this matter. There is no reason why the Attorney General is insisting. But when you look at it critically, it's as if he's trying to appease the appointing authority. I think what we've seen for the longest time is that when men and women are appointed by the president, they get this feeling as if he has done them a favor. You get one to think they're acting as if they are individuals who have never dreamt. You see, if someone has never dreamt about becoming Attorney General and suddenly they become, if someone had never dreamt about becoming Minister of Finance and suddenly somebody becomes, so they remain forever beholden to the person that has appointed them and helped them to achieve that. We can argue that probably that is the driving force behind them fighting to be seen to be defending the deal as if their lives depend on it. And I think this whole business of trying to appease the individual of the president that has appointed and trying sometimes even to read between lines and debate between themselves over what would please him and what would displease him is the whole problem of this country. You recall there was a time, I think in 2016, when the Attorney General then was giving an opinion over whether or not Kizza Besigye should be nominated, because he was being he was facing charges, and I think it was 2011 for sure, not 2016, 2011. So in 2011, the Attorney General then, who we know had a PhD in jurisprudence, had advised that some people can be more innocent than others, and therefore Besigye cannot be nominated. But true to the Electoral Commission They had the legal officer that was sane enough, who advised that there's nothing in law that stops the Electoral Commission from nominating Kizza Besigye, and Kizza Besigye was nominated. But you see, the legal officer of the Electoral Commission then was a junior officer in the area of jurisprudence. And here you had an attorney general who has a PhD in jurisprudence giving advice to government that was really wanting. And then you ask yourself, what happens to these good, intelligent men and women when they get to be appointed into government offices? So it takes you back to the whole notion of trying to appease and being seen to be appeasing and pleasing and rewarding the appointing authority, even when it is not necessary. In this case, I think it's important to understand that the bigger picture is the general interest of Ugandans and what Uganda wants. So I think that's why they behave the way they are behaving, to appease the appointing authority.
Thank you so much, Henry, for throwing light to a question disturbing many Ugandans, because truth be told is that we've seen a force of two against the population of we are 45 million. Yeah, I think it's a force of two against the population of 45 million Ugandans, and I think that's quite absurd. And well, let's see how far this goes, and probably I think it's also a test of our democracy, whether the majority rule the day. Our time, we have about 10 minutes to get out of here, but I can also open up I can open up our program to anybody out there who has a question, who has a comment, a clarity, anything that you want us to respond to. My other question to you, Henry, is about the issue of concerning these shady procurements, the few that we've mentioned. There are quite many, but there are those that stand out, like the National ID Project, the Goa project. Now we have the Coffee Deal and the Specialized Children's Hospital project. I think also the Smart Tracking project. But there's something interesting when you look at all these projects that have always been controversy that have always caused controversy within the public.
Thank you very much.
I think I'm back.
You're back.
Let me make my question. I was saying that I've not seen such tax waivers extended to local farms, but also you realize that another common phenomenon is that most of these procurements are signposted as emergency and classified, more or less to try to obscure public scrutiny. I want to understand what's your take when you look at the way most of these public procurements span out.
Yeah, thank you for that one, because as you were presenting, I remembered that in the deal for AGOA, there was a woman called, I think, Rosa Whittaker, who was fronted, and the way she was being marketed before Ugandans was like we were getting honey and milk out of this woman. She was the overall connector, and that through him we are going to export a lot. In fact, many of the Ugandans started imagining, that now we are going to see the end of putting on second-hand clothes, because then the apparels that we are going to produce for AGOA, the remainders or those which have damage that can't be exported will flood our market, and suddenly we'll see the end to this. So that was a foreign, I think she was an American. In this case, you are seeing Pinetti, the Italian. Of course, you can even question her Italianism, but that's not me to do. But the Italian has come. They are foreigners. She's a foreigner. She's being accorded unbelievable concessions, tax waivers, government promissory notes, and then she's able to cash them at will. For 3 years, there's now work going on. Okay. Maybe there's 10% of the work, but she has cashed about 47% of the money, which is questionable and can be a crime. And then still the president is insisting on defending her. She's been given land. She's been given an industrial park in Amamve, and basically the deal she's facing is too good to be true. But on the contrary, when you look at our local coffee farmers,
I think we lost Henry in the process. I think he was trying to break down the nature of investors concerning the procurements that have often been the eye of the storm. That we quote unquote the shady procurements. He was trying to lay case on the character of these procurements and how, why is it that we have such procurements signposted against certain threshold of amounts of money? Usually, what we call the big ticket procurement deals, they tend to have certain characteristics of one is a foreign firm that is a beneficiary, and also the fact that they enjoy a lot of concessions, tax waivers that follow through, and then they are classified as emergency. They are also classified to more or less to be. Some of them are signposted to be of security in nature, so somehow there is less public scrutiny to these procurements. And we wanted to make sense of why all these procurements, all of them have the same shade. You know, we always have that saying that if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's definitely a duck. I hope we can have him back on to really drive this point home, because I'm so sure there are many people out there who are trying to connect the dots on when it comes to how we manage public procurements of such nature, and the common elements that cut through on the beneficiaries of such procurements, and also how eventually most of them end up. And what should we then, if we can use this, what should we then expect? What is the end in mind on how will this end? This, I know there is a probe ongoing on the now currently it's the Pinetti coffee plus the lower deal. Where does this, how is it going to end? Looking at those common threads. Henry is back online. Henry, can you please proceed?
Yeah, so the answers to this question can also be found in the nature of the in the manner in which we finance our politics and how we are sustaining the regimes in power. Because it's easier to work through an intermediary that is foreign if you're going to have to find a way of sustaining the regimes. We've seen this in Kenya through Anglo-leasing, but also the Golden Bank scan. We've seen this with the Gupta family. In fact, the interesting thing of the Gupta family is that they came with nothing, and now they are super wealthy. So we are seeing such things happening here. And of course, it is regrettable that it is foreigners that do not seem to be, cannot be more patriotic than Ugandans themselves. The question is, the issue is the learning we should be picking from this, that it's important for us to be able to encourage and support more of Ugandan investors, the ones that are grounded in the areas. We are not short of Ugandans that were investing already in the medical industry. We are not short of Ugandans who are already investing in the coffee industry. Why did we not support those? Why go for foreigners? So these are some of the things we need to learn from in order for us to ensure that the capital goes forward. But also we need to listen sometimes to the people. If the bigger majority are saying we no to the deal, why do you cling on to it? If the woman has demonstrated by word and deed with Rubowa that she cannot manage these things, why do you then again add a coffee deal? What do you know that we don't know? What is it? Are you chasing? What is the thing behind the thing? So these are some of the questions that citizens are looking at. And I think it's important that at this day and time for our leaders to listen to the people and listen to the people's views, but also try to listen to the sense, appeal to the sense of reason. so that we do things, they do things that are defensible. In my own view, the deals around Pinetti are indefensible, but also it's clear that there is an invisible hand that is hidden behind Pinetti. It's also clear that Pinetti is just a financial intermediary, and therefore in Uganda they call it Kayungirizi, and therefore we need to dig deeper to understand who are the beneficial owners, who are the beneficiaries of some of these deals. Those are some of the lessons we should draw. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Henry. And indeed, I'm not going to add on that because we are at the top of the hour. I think allow me to bring this to a close. You've heard it from Henry himself, and I think it's important that as Ugandans, we interest ourselves in how this is all spanning out. And I'm glad that the media has been at the forefront of churning out so much information about about the visible hand in the public procurement involving Pinetti at the moment. Thank you so much, Henry, for being part of this conversation. My name is Felix, who was moderating today's show, and I'm bringing it to a close till next week, same time. Bye-bye, and then stay safe. All the best.